What's good, Commanders fans? Just want to make a quick video here. I just wanted to talk about the Commanders' new hire in Brian Schneider. Now, Brian Schneider was with Dan Quinn in Seattle. He also was with Larry Izzo in Seattle, where he was the special teams coordinator. Now, he's going to be role reversing or reversing roles here, where he's going to be under Larry Izzo. So it's kind of like the teacher being under the student this time, where Larry Izzo was the student, now he's the teacher, and Brian Schneider is now the teacher, or the boss employee switcheroo, which is what you guys understand for sure. Now Brian Schneider, he was fired by the Niners, and he didn't do the best job with the Niners. That's why he was fired. Now, could you say he was scapegoated a little bit? Sure, you could, but he was instrumental in them drafting Jake Moody, the kicker, with the third round pick, where Jake Moody has been awful. Now Jake Moody did get hurt in the middle of the season where he had a high ankle sprain and he still toughed it out and played. He was just awful. He probably should have just sat down. And I think some of that is on coaching too. Like we learned that too with Austin Seibert. Like Austin Seibert kept saying he was okay. Then he went out there against Dallas and shanked that extra point. He clearly wasn't okay. And then Dan Quinn put him on injury reserve after that, just not playing around with injuries with kickers. So you look at some of the numbers for Brian Schneider, and he was really good with the Seahawks. Don't get me wrong. He was great with the Seahawks. Like they had a top 10, top 5 special teams unit for years and years and years. Like you remember the Percy Harvin return kick for a touchdown in the Super Bowl. That was under Brian Schneider. They also, in 2012, Schneider's unit scored on a block punt, a kickoff return, a muff punt, and a block field goal during the season. And I'm bringing this up because I know, you can kind of poo-poo or put away special teams assistant coach hiring, but all these hirings are super important, guys. This coaching staff, look at what they're trying to do with Tavita Pritchard. Other teams are interviewing Tavita Pritchard as a assistant quarterbacks coach. David Blau, as the assistant quarterbacks coach, has been getting a bunch of interviews to become quarterback coaches elsewhere. Brian Johnson, quarterbacks coach, being interviewed for other places, or pass game coordinator, assistant head coach. So a lot of our coaches are other teams are trying to poach our coaches. And our special teams assistant just left to go with Pete Carroll to be their assistant special teams coordinator or their linebackers coach with Pete Carroll with the Raiders. So all these hirings are very, very important, and it all matters in some way, somehow. We see how important special teams with Tress Way, Jeremy Reeves, Nick Bellore. I think for the most part with special teams, we did a good job. We didn't have to punt the ball much because Jaden was so good this year and the offense was so good. But to get back to Brian Schneider's resume here, so with the Seahawks, he did a darn good job. They scored in 2012. They scored on a block punt, a kickoff return, a muff punt, and blocked field goal during that season. The blocked field goal was against the Niners. That was returned for 90 yards, marking the third longest field goal block return in NFL history. Also, running back Leon Washington led the NFC and ranked second in NFL with a 29.0 kickoff return average. Ryan set the franchise mark with a 40.8 net punting average and became the third punter in NFL history to average 60 or more yards per punt in a single game. So we already have the personnel here. Like I said, with Tressway, Nick Bellore, Jeremy Reeves, we already have, and Percy Butler's a darn good special teams player as well. We already have guys that, really, really play well on special teams already. And also, just to put a feather in his cap, Seattle's kickers won special teams player of the week awards, with kicker Alunda Marr earning week 7 honors after connecting on a Seahawks record 5 field goals against Arizona. So those are some of the good things. I'll talk about some of the bad because we want to be objective here. And he's not the head honcho. Larry Izzo is the head honcho. We know Larry Izzo brings a lot of energy to the table for sure. Not sure about Brian Schneider because I haven't really seen his personality much. But Jake Moody made 55% of his field goals after the high ankle sprain, which was awful. They did get beat by 2 fake punts last year. And remember, we called a fake punt with Tress Way, which was a good call. I don't know if Larry Izzo was the mastermind of that or whatever. I know they practice that in practice frequently. That's what, if you listen to the podcast with Will Compton, and I forgot who else was on there, but Will Compton was talking about how they practiced with Tress Way doing fake punts for years and years and years. And Will Compton has been on the team since we were the Skins. So you know how long ago that was. The Niners finished 15th in special teams DVOA, Brian Schneider's first year, which is pretty darn good. They finished 25th in special teams DVOA the second year, which is pretty bad. And they finished 31st in special teams DVOA this past season. That's a big reason why he got fired. They had a muff punt in the Super Bowl as well. They finished dead last in EPA per play for special teams. They lost 60 expected points on special teams as well. And Jake Moody was a 3rd-round pick. When you pick a kicker that high, they gotta hit. And Brian Schneider was huge in influencing that pick in the 3rd round. He also simulated rain and wind in in-game kicking situations in a workout. And Jake Moody passed the test with flying colors. And that's a big reason why Brian Schneider told them to pick Jake Moody with the 3rd round pick. So, and yeah, that's just how it was. Kick coverage was not good for them as well. And Jake Moody injured himself trying to tackle DJ Dallas on a kick return. So, yeah, he just wasn't good. But he was really good with the Seahawks. Really good. So let's hope we can get Seahawks John Schneider here under Larry Izzo. And he can help out Larry Izzo. So we'll see what happens with that. Now, let's get to Cooper Kupp here. Cooper Kupp, not Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp tweeted out that he has been told that, you know, the Rams they want to part ways. They want to trade him. So, you know, he's been a great receiver throughout his career. I mean, you know, he's been an All-Pro, Pro Bowler. The last couple seasons, he's had some injuries and whatnot, so he's missed some games, and he hasn't been his usual stuff. The 2021 season was just incredible for him. He had 1,947 yards. That's where he played in all 17 games. Had 16 touchdowns. 16 touchdowns. That's just insane, man. And Sean McVay was in his bag that year, too. He had 1 rushing touchdown as well. Hold on. No, he had 0 rushing touchdowns. But he had 1 rush for a first down. But, yeah, 145 catches. That is insane. 92 catches in 2020, 94 catches in 2019. Then the numbers just could go down. 2022 played in 9 games, 75 catches for 812 yards. The production is still there through 9 games. 812 yards through 9 games is pretty darn good. 59 catches for 737 yards in 2023. 2024 had 67 catches for 710 yards. He is 31. He's not 32 yet. He's going to be 32 on June 15th. He could be a post-June 1st cut where I heard the Rams will save $15 million. But if you do trade for him right now, you take on $20 million. You inherit $20 million salary in 2025, $7.5 million roster bonus, plus a $12.5 million base salary, and $19.85 million in 2026, unless his contract is renegotiated per Adam Schefter. I mean, you're not going to get much for him. You probably just give up a 5th or a 6th or a 7th, if that, or just wait for him to be released if there's no suitors. So I honestly, I'm not banging on the table for Cooper Kupp. I'm not really asking for Cooper Kupp at all. But the only way I would take a look at Cooper Kupp is if you miss out on T. Higgins, you miss out on Garrett Wilson is not traded. You miss out on Chris Godwin. You miss out on Amari Cooper. You miss out on DeAndre Hopkins. You miss out on, I don't really want Keenan Allen, but I'm just naming the top free agents through wide receiver. A lot of people are talking about Darius Slayton right now. I'm not really excited for Darius Slayton, but if you get him as wide receiver 3, okay, sure. Then the draft, you miss out on Meke from Ohio State. You miss out on Luther Burden. But, you know, that's the only reason why. It would have to be panic. You break the glass. He gets released June 1st. Then, okay, yeah, we're just going to go ahead and sign Cooper Kupp for a 1-year deal and see what happens. And hopefully he would be wide receiver number 3. Hopefully you still get somebody else who's better at wide receiver number 2. You still draft somebody. Even if you bring in Cooper Kupp, you still draft somebody in the first 3 rounds, in my opinion. But bringing in Cooper Kupp as wide receiver number 2 is very disappointing. That would be a very disappointing move to me. And that would just be disappointing if Adam Peters chooses to do that. But I definitely would not trade for that contract and bring in Cooper Kupp. You still got to pay Terry. You really need to extend Terry. Terry needs an extension. He needs to get paid more than what he's getting. He's getting $23 million per year. I think he deserves more than that, especially after having an all-pro season. So those are my thoughts on Cooper Kupp. Shout out to Louis. Louis brought up a good point where, you know, Adam Thielen, everybody thought he was washed, and he still has some really good years. He's had 2 really good seasons with the Panthers. He's played really, really well with Bryce Young and some other quarterbacks that he's played with the Panthers. So maybe Cooper Kupp does have an ascension. Maybe he still has something left in the tank at 31 years old. And maybe he's still a chain mover. You know, how tall is he? He's what, 6'2", so he's about average height. That's actually pretty tall for us. He'd probably be the tallest receiver on the team if Noah Brown doesn't come back. That's the crazy thing about it. We don't really have a lot of tall receivers. I know Chris Moore is 6'3", something like that. We don't even know if he's going to come back either. So we don't really. And his nickname is Grandfather as well. Oh no, I'm sorry, no, that's not his nickname. But Cooper Kupp, former 3rd round pick. You know, I mean, like I said, the only way I would take Cooper Kupp is if he's released and you just get him for free on a 1-year deal, a cheap deal, like a $5 million deal, something like that. That's the only way I would use him. He's a chain mover. He has good hands. He's still a solid receiver. I think he's still at number 2, but of course the Rams are moving on because they got Puka Nacua and they just feel like, you know, they just don't want to pay him that much money when Puka Nacua is clearly the better receiver right now. He was all-pro in 2019, all-pro in 2021. Pro Bowler, all that. So I mean, he had 2 really good seasons. He had 2 seasons over 1,000 yards That it's crazy. You feel like he would have more than that because just how popular of a player that he is, and he has that Super Bowl ring. But, other than that, he's been under 800 yards the past 3 seasons. He's been under 850 receiving yards the past 3 seasons. So to me, right now, at best, he's a wide receiver number 3 on a good team. If he comes here, he would have to be wide receiver number 3. I would want a better wide receiver number 2. If you get Terry and then draft somebody and then sign him June 1st cut or whatever, I wouldn't be upset about it, and get Slayton or Hollywood Brown or something like that. It wouldn't be awful, but it would be a swing and a miss in my opinion, but it would be an upgrade from last year. That's all I'll say on that. So, all right, you guys let me know what you guys think about the hiring and Cooper Kupp being available via trade, or let's see if he gets released later down the line. As always, hail Commanders, left hand up. Peace.